Shalom, Erev Shabbat Shalom. I want to share with you an idea in this week's parasha that's not only a practical tip, but also perhaps one of the most fundamental ways to avoid suffering in this world and the biggest Segulah for how our Tefilah should be answered. And really starts with a question. A question, Sfat Emet asked the question. Said, Sfat Emet, quoting a Midrash, right? So really, Am Yisrael should have been in the desert for 3 days. It should have taken 3 days after Har Sinai to get to Eretz Yisrael. And instead of 3 days, it took, at the end of the day, 40 years. And he asks, whatever had to happen in those 40 years, whatever suffering had to go through, the long journeys and not having a stable place, how could, whatever tikkun had to happen those 40 years, how could that have happened within 3 days? So a beautiful answer, and really the answer is coming from something said in many places by Chazal. Rabbi Yonah says the following. He's quoting a pasuk, and it comes from Pirkei Avot even. In Pirkei Avot it says, Aser retzono kirtzonecha. It says, make retzono, his will, your will. And through that, Kadesh ya'aser retzonocha kirtzono. Then he will make your will his will. What does that mean? So Rabbi Yonah quotes a pasuk, and interprets a pasuk in a very interesting way. He says, Ki chamat adam todeka, pasuk in Tehillim. Says he reads this pasuk as meaning chamat adam. When there is chamat adam, there's anger towards man, and a person goes through troubles and through difficulties. And what does he do? Todeka. Pasuk in Tehillim Ayin Vav. And he is todeka. He thanks you instead of complaining, instead of not accepting it. He thanks you. It says in the pasuk, Sherit chemot tachgor. The leftovers of the anger, meaning any other punishment that's supposed to come to this person, tachgor, Hashem will girdle, Hashem will close off, Hashem will protect him from them. Says Rabbi Yonah, there's 2 ways a person can react to Yisurim, and the Jewish people can react to the suffering in the desert. How do we see they reacted? The second they leave Har Sinai, they start complaining that we don't have the food we want, that traveling is too difficult, and it's complaint after complaint, and that's the beginning of a downfall leading to next week's parasha, the parasha of the Chet HaMeragelim. Where does the sin start? Well, it starts in the complaining. Instead of, Hashem put them in a hard place. It was difficult for them. And that precisely they were supposed to, instead of complaining, instead of starting with a complaint and wanting it to change, this should start with start with thank Hashem for what you have, appreciate what you have, accept what you have. After you accept it, you can pray. And really, this is a midrash claim, midrash in Tanna of Eliyahu from Eliyahu Navi. Said he's quoting a speech between Hashem and Moshe, and in quoting Hashem, he says, "Keshani roeh et bnei adam she'en tochet." You have people who have no hope, they have none of their own zechuyot, they have no merit of their own, and nor do they have zechut avot. They don't even have parents on whose merits I should listen to them, I should do their will, and they could really get to the tzara. But when they approach Hashem, how do they do? Bishvil shen omdim umevarchim. They stand up, like in Amidah, they stand up to pray, umevarchim, and then they bless Hashem, and then and only then and then they pray, they beg, and they ask Hashem for things to change. Then Hashem says, "Nizkak lahem, I help them, I attend them, v'kofel lahem ezotehem, and I double the parnasa." Says the Minhaj Zachem Falachi, many Mikorot say the same idea. If a person, something bad happens to a person, the first reaction shouldn't be, this is bad. First reaction is, this from Hashem, it must be good. Now, I'm in this world, Hashem wants me to pray, Hashem understands that I don't see it as good, and praying is the correct thing to do. But first, accept it. First, accept it must be for the best. And then and only then, pray. You can pray, Hashem, please, I want something good for me to happen, I want this to change, but it has to come with an acceptance. With accepting Yisurim, person who suffers, but he accepts the Behava, he says he understands the sufferings from Hashem must be for his good. And then he also prays, he also does what he can to change the circumstances. He can, instead of wandering in the desert for 40 years, he can have the same amount of kapara of Yisurim in 3 days. 3 days of Yisurin, of suffering, which are accepted happily, they are equivalent to the suffering of 40 years in the desert. So if you want to minimize Yisurim, minimize suffering, and the tefillah should be answered, it all starts with accepting the present circumstance, of accepting the thing that we don't want, the thing that you want to change, accepting it's from Hashem, it must be for the good. Don't be bitter about it. Don't complain about it, and only after accepting it and understanding it comes from Hashem who loves us, who wants only our best, and wants our tefillot, then follow up with the tefillah. And like Hashem says in Tanviah, Hashem should be nizkak lan, Hashem should attend to our tefillot, double our parnasa, and bring us all the yeshuot.